With the Minnesota Vikings 2023 season mercifully over, the Vikings did secure, at the very worst, the number 12 overall pick in the draft. And this offseason, there's no bigger position on this team that's the question mark. That's a question mark as the quarterback position. And we're going to get a good look at two of these prospects in this draft tomorrow night in the national championship game.
Dude, 100%. And like you said, I mean, us losing against the Lions, it puts us in position for at the very least, a top 12 pick. And like you said, this feels like this draft. The writing seems to be on the wall that Kwesi in the front office of the Minnesota Vikings want to find their quarterback of the future. There's reports coming out talking about Anthony Richardson and us doing whatever we could to move up for him, end up not working out in our favor. And now going in this draft where there is some really high level talent, and we're even closer up last year 23, this year at the least 12, so it's not going to take as much. It doesn't seem as a difficult process to move up and grab our quarterback of the future. And like you said, that start with the season officially over for the Minnesota Vikings, looking into who might be our quarterback of future starts tomorrow, Monday night, national championship game, Washington versus Michigan, with two top quarterbacks coming into this NFL draft. I think JJ McCarthy isn't an absolute sure that he's going into this year's draft, but it sounds like there's a great possibility that he does, and I'm expecting him to. So I do think this is a battle for us Viking fans in our spot at 12. We have a really good chance at Penix there. We'll talk more about where we think we might want to pick these quarterbacks, but whoever wins in these games, you can expect their draft stock to move up from it. And it's our first look and our first real live look since knowing the season's over, since knowing what our draft spot is, to see if one of these guys can be our quarterback of the future.
Excellent. And like you said, I mean, these are two guys that if you feel good enough about them, there's a good chance you wouldn't need to move off 12 to get them. So yeah, I mean, this game's gonna be a lot of fun, really competitive. Both of these guys have a lot of good things and some things that they need to work on. Obviously, as we get farther down the offseason, we'll be looking at that and putting videos out about it. But I said, let's just dive into these two guys a little bit and kind of show what they did this last season.
Let's do it. And first for Washington, Michael Penix Jr., hell of a season, 337 completions for 66.7 completion percentage, 4,652 yards, 35 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and this is according to PFF, 91.9 pass offensive grade with a 91.3 passing grade. And then on the ground, 31 attempts, 74 yards. This is without minusing for sacks, 74 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 fumbles, 69.4 run grade here. What is your initial thoughts of Michael Penix going into this national titles games, but also potentially being a Vikings quarterback?
Right. And obviously the first thing that people are going to note or talk about when it comes to Michael Penix is the injuries, right? A little bit older. He did play 6 years of college ball. He did have 2 torn ACLs in the same knee. So that of course is a red flag and why I think he's not being talked about in that top 10 conversation. But man, if those knees hold up, you are this guy is everything you want in a quarterback that could come onto your team and start day one. I mean, again, I haven't gotten a chance to watch a ton of him, but I did watch him in his playoff game. And I watched him a little bit when he played Oregon earlier on in the season. And the things that jump off the page is the explosion the ball has off his hand. And it's like the way this man throws the ball is amazing. Yes, he's a lefty, looks a little funky, obviously, but it's so fun to watch him. And he is pinpoint accurate in the playoff game, dropping absolute dimes in big situations. And as we talked about with Kirk Cousins, like in the big games, he hasn't necessarily always shown us he can do it. Michael Penix, in the big games he's had this year, has shown us he can do it. So it's just, I mean, those are the two things I look at with him. And that's what I wanted to see first, because obviously the Kevin O'Connell offense is centered around a guy that knows how to operate from within the pocket. And that's what he can do at an elite level. And he also he had some design runs in the national championship as well. So I know he can still run even with those knees. And he does have the ability to get out of the pocket and he's not going to be Houdini-esque like Caleb Williams, but he has the ability and the brain to get out of the pocket and make plays when he needs to. And also with the injuries, I think he's also a lot better about avoiding the big hits. So I think there's a ton to like about Michael Penix coming into this draft. And I'm excited to watch what he does on the grandest stage of them all in college.
Yeah. And he produced throughout his entire career in college. And yes, even, his earlier on, even those seasons where he did end up getting those ACL tears. And I'm with you. I mean, he's someone that does look kind of funky, being a left-handed, and he does kind of a weird release in a sense, but to me, it looks like he's just throwing a fastball, which is crazy, and it comes off his hand like that, just strikes and very accurate, like you said, and would fit into our offense for sure. Like you said, that knees, it's definitely concerning. I think if we end up grabbing this guy, and this is a guy that if he does go out and ball out in this national championship and he does win, I think you're going to for sure see him as a top 10. I can't say for sure, but I do think you're going to start seeing him being mocked as a top 10 quarterback. And I wouldn't be surprised to us, or not even ahead of us, to the point where we might even have to trade up a couple of picks to grab him if he looks that good, because his passing is that good. But again, the concerning about his knees, and if we drafted him, as soon as we do, it's going to be behind all of our minds. At least in the first season, maybe we see something good enough and we're not as worried about it, whatever. But you're going to be waiting for something bad to happen. And with technology and how medicine has moved around, I don't think any injuries is as serious as it used to be. You can come back a lot better because of how far advanced we are in the medical fields. And you do see it a lot better now. So there's a real possibility that, it's nothing to be too concerned about, but it's going to be in our minds, and it might affect him as a rushing quarterback. And I know for me, I want a guy that can still avoid pressure, as we just saw with Nick Mullins, is he can't do that at all. And then with Kirk Cousins, is you have to worry about them being able to avoid some sort of pressure so they can extend the plays to some extent. And I do hope we see that in Michael Penix. But yeah, I'll start tomorrow with his game against the Michigan here. And one more thing before moving on to JJ McCarthy is to ask everybody to like the video and subscribe if you haven't. And also at the end of the video, we're going to give our picks for who we want to win this national title game Monday night. That I'm excited for.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good one here. And for our other quarterback here, we got JJ McCarthy, Michigan, looking like Tom Brady in this picture kind of here, but hey, that's probably pushing it. Attempts 314, 230 completion for 73.2 completion percentage, 2,851 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 90.6 offensive grade, 87.7 pass, and then 307 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, 3 fumbles for a 76.6 running game. What is your thoughts of Michigan and his quarterback, JJ McCarthy, coming into this draft for the Minnesota Vikings?
So JJ McCarthy, from the little bit I've watched, and looking at some of the stats from his games, I'm not as high on him as Michael Penix. I do think, from what I understand, he's very good about getting out of the pocket and making plays. And he's, obviously, as you see, a lot more rushing yards. I think he is more of a rusher, but he's a guy that, to me, again, we still have to look deeper into these guys. But to me, he seems like a guy that is going to need a little bit of seasoning, a year to sit behind a pro and just kind of learn the game and learn the offense from that quarterback, as well as Kevin O'Connell. I just don't feel like he's a game one guy. And again, I haven't done enough research to actually know that. So, I'll have to watch a little more, but just from what I've seen in bits and pieces of him, I do think, I think a lot of it, I think he is he strikes me as like a West Coast game managing quarterback who just gets the ball to his receivers, which is the first thing you want to ask for. Right. I think was where the high completion percentage comes from. But there is a lot to like about his game, right? He's young, he's quite a bit younger than Penix and some of the other guys in this draft as well. And there's a lot to like about JJ McCarthy. I just think he needs a little bit more seasoning. But if we took him, I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah. And to your point here, with him, it does I think with him, I think that's a big question. Is he going to be more of like a game management quarterback? Is he someone that is going to just lead your team by himself if you need him to? And obviously, he's in position with a really good Michigan team to show that he can be a winner at the very least. And he is mobile in comparison to Michael Penix. You're not going to see the arm that you do with Penix. You're not going to see even the accuracy probably as you see with Penix, even though he actually had higher accuracy, but obviously a lot less attempts. And you're thinking he's making a lot safer throws, but on the ground, you're going to see a little bit more. You're definitely going to see some more mobility out of JJ McCarthy. But I think at the end of the day, if anyone's going to pick one of these quarterbacks, people are more likely to pick Penix before him. But you'd think that right now, I'd say JJ McCarthy is looked at as being like a early second round talent, maybe first, maybe. But if he comes out and win this game, I wouldn't be surprised if people think JJ McCarthy will probably go into the first round, which, begs the question. If we're sitting at 12, 10 or 11 or 10 pick, if that's the case, if we like JJ McCarthy, do we stay there I feel like even if he wins the championship, I don't think you pick him at your pick, but you might pick someone else or another player that we need, one of these defensive ends or cornerbacks that are early in this draft, and then maybe move up with our second round pick to make sure that we grab him, or even move back from our pick, which I know a lot of fans, including myself, I don't really want to see us move back. I want to make sure we go grab the guy that we want, but I don't also want to pick too early on a guy like JJ McCarthy. But it will show a lot to see how he handles this game at the biggest level or the biggest game in college football.
For sure.
So with both these quarterbacks, I think there's a lot to see, and I'm excited to watch this game. But ultimately, who do you want to win between Washington and Michigan in Monday night's national football game?
Well, as you can
national title football game.
As you can see here, I'm kind of a Sky Uma guy. So
yep,
I really can't pick Michigan to win this game. So I would like to see I'd like to see Michael Penix in Washington get the dub.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Washington to get this dub. We can't root for. I'm not a huge I'm not automatic. Just love the Gophers or whatever. They're kind of my team, but I'm like a free agent in that area. But right now they are kind of my team, and I'm not going to pick another Big Ten team, especially Michigan, who's kind of always been like them in Ohio State are like those teams that you don't like, right? So we don't want them because of that. I'm sorry, SK, sorry, Rap, but Michigan ain't it. We're gonna go with Penix here, and plus I want to see sitting at 12. I would prefer to see Penix ball out and be a little bit more excited and more confident that if we go and grab Penix, that all right, he's a winner too and stuff, instead of if he comes out and doesn't play well, then we're questioning that pick at 12 at that point. So
yeah, but either way, this is a big game as it comes to quarterback prospects for the Minnesota Vikings, and as I said, it's going to be a big offseason as it comes to the quarterback, as we at this point don't have any starting quarterbacks under contract next year. So it's going to be a fun offseason. And this is honestly where the quarterback evaluation starts. These two biggest games of their lives, biggest stage in college football. And it's going to be very telling about these two guys. And Vikings fans, your eyes should be closely on this game tomorrow night. It's going to be an exciting one. Let us know your thoughts on these two quarterbacks. And if you want the Vikings to draft them, in the comment section, like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you guys next time right here on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.